Now, one of the things I was most curious to see after the series finale of Game of Thrones aired was what the actors and actresses would say about it once the world had seen it and they no longer had to worry about spoilers. Because as you may know, there were several clips making the rounds on the internet of some of them all but saying that the show was going to end disappointingly, that things were not going to go the way fans may be wanting or hoping for them to go, and that it's not necessarily even the ending that the actors or actresses themselves would have hoped for either. And then in the days leading up to the final episode, a petition was started on change.org asking for the final season of the show to be remade because of the incompetence of the showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. A petition that, at the time of recording this, now has over 1.4 million signatures. And of course, some of the actors have since been asked about it, with Kit Harington, who plays Jon Snow, telling the fans they could go F themselves, because, as he went on to say, he knows how much work was put into the show, he knows how much people cared about it, and he knows how much pressure people put on themselves, and how many sleepless nights people spent working on it. He also prefaced his comments by saying that he doesn't mean to sound mean about critics. Then there was Sophie Turner, who plays Sansa Stark, who was also asked about the petition, and she said that she thinks it's disrespectful because of how much hard work was put into the show by so many people, and that fans are mainly upset because it didn't go the way they wanted. And before I go on, I don't want to take this any further out of context than it might already be, because it's not like either one of them, as far as I know at least, have taken to social media to attack the disappointed fans. They're simply being asked these questions in interviews and giving honest responses, and I can certainly respect that. I can also completely understand being defensive of a show you've worked so hard on for so many years, and taking it personally when well over 1 million people signed a petition saying that what you did should now be redone because it was bad. However, there are a couple things to consider here. First, as far as I know, no one is out there attacking the actors or crew or anyone but the two showrunners, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. No one is complaining about anything but the writing, and even if you loved Season 8 of the show, I think most people will agree the writing hasn't been as good this season as it has been in previous ones, and especially how good it was in the first few seasons when Weiss and Benioff were working directly from the books of George R.R. Martin. And in a very odd sort of way, a petition asking for the season to be remade because the writing hasn't been good is actually a defense or endorsement of the actors, crew, and so on, because the fans care so much about what you actors have done, these characters that you've played, and the amazing world that the crew has brought to life, that they think all your hard work was wasted on a poorly written script and an end to the story. They think we all deserved better than a rushed ending, and that's why fans are signing the petition. It's not because they think you didn't work hard enough or that the people behind the scenes didn't work hard enough, but that you worked too hard for it all to end like this. That being said, I do have to strongly disagree with Sophie Turner when she says that the fans are just upset that it didn't go the way they wanted it to. Because for whatever reason these days, that has just become the default counter to angry or critical fans, and it's likely Sophie Turner doesn't even know that. But mainly it became very heavily used in the Star Wars community against fans who didn't like The Last Jedi. That one of the main reasons why they didn't like the movie was because it didn't go the way they wanted it to. But here's the thing about that. There's a reason why fans expect a character to behave in a certain way or for a story to go in a particular direction. And it's because, on some level, the story is likely leading us to believe that's how things are going to play out. And if they don't go that way, if the writers otherwise decide to include a twist, that twist better be earned and make sense within the story, otherwise people aren't going to accept it or buy it. And that's of course the tricky part about pulling off a great twist in a story, especially one with long established characters. It has to be both unexpected and shocking, yet at the same time believable, and where we can look back at the story and say, wow, I should have seen that coming, because the setup had been that damn good, and it had been that cleverly disguised. The Red Wedding is a perfect example of this. When it happens, it shocks and even angers us a bit. But then when we look back, we realize the setup was there all along, that this made perfect sense in the context of the story. It just wasn't overt, which is what makes it a good twist. Yeah, you might still be angry that it happens because you liked Robb Stark, and you were rooting for him. And you might even be angry at the writers still for doing this to your favorite character. But in the end, the sensible fan who appreciates a great story will tip their cap to the writer and say, well played. But that same fan who loves and appreciates a great story won't be so forgiving if your big twist with a beloved character isn't fully earned, if you take what had been otherwise a great story and start to cut corners and go for shock value without proper setup. And don't get me wrong here, I do think there were signs that Daenerys might turn or become a bit of a tyrant. It wasn't completely unearned. There were some signs there. However, I don't know that it was set up that she'd go completely mad and burn a city with millions of men, women, and children in it, other than her just being a Targaryen, I suppose. Also, I'm still not entirely sure what set her off in that moment, why it was like a switch flipping, and that after it was all said and done, there wasn't even one shred of remorse out of her, or even an understanding about what she'd done. She was just all in now. Every last speck of the character we'd been following for all these years was completely gone. When in all reality, and if there were more episodes to explore this turn, it would have been more believable or made more sense in my opinion if she was maybe inconsolable and even bewildered by what she'd done, that she'd locked herself away, far from the Iron Throne because she now questioned her ability to rule, that she didn't know how or why the madness had overcome her and she feared it happening again, instead of being all in and completely tyrannical and insane now. But of course, the show didn't have time to do anything but make her fully embrace the madness, and therein lies the problem. They didn't have the time to do such a radical character change justice, yet they did it anyway. And that's why people are mad right now and signing a petition. They're mad that the show didn't get the ending they feel it deserved. They're not mad at the cast and crew. They're disappointed the writers seem more interested in their next project, that being Star Wars, than they are in finishing this one out. They're upset that arguably the greatest show in history got a rushed and a dud of an ending. Though thankfully, and surprisingly enough, I have yet to hear the terrible phrase toxic fans being thrown at the disappointed Game of Thrones fans right now. Because much like saying, fans are only unhappy because it didn't go the way they wanted, calling fans toxic is yet another way to try and dismiss and discredit people without actually addressing their real concerns or issues. And it's not just something that happens in fandoms, it happens everywhere in the world these days. When people have the audacity to say something you don't like or agree with, or might be controversial in even the smallest of ways, you just put a label on them and that somehow completely renders any and all arguments they try to make irrelevant. For example, if you don't like the character of Rey in Star Wars, well then some will say that you must be sexist. There couldn't possibly be another explanation other than this terrible one we've decided arbitrarily upon without any sort of evidence, and therefore you are now toxic to the fandom and anything you say just doesn't matter. And the thing is, as a fan, you don't have some sort of responsibility to just like whatever they give you. If anything, you have a responsibility as the consumer, as a paying customer, and as a concerned fan, to let them know how you feel, to tell them what you think is good or what isn't, what works and what doesn't. I mean, I can't even tell you how many stores or restaurants I go to these days who want me to take some type of frickin' online survey because they want my feedback, good or bad. And yet the entertainment industry will sometimes attack you if you have the audacity to do just that. And I know some will be quick to point out that entertainment or films or shows are different because it's not about fan service or shouldn't be, it's about an artist telling their story. Which is great and all, but if you want to share your story with me and if you want me to pay for it, well then I reserve the right to tell you what I think about it. And if the artist doesn't want people to nitpick their work, well then they have every right not to share it in an effort to make money off of it. Just like you now have every right to take to the comments below and tell me that I'm an idiot or to completely disagree with absolutely everything I've said. Because I fully understand that by putting myself out there, by expressing myself in a video that I post on the internet, I am willingly opening myself up to criticism. And anybody who works on a long-running or highly popular television show watched by millions upon millions of people should realize the exact same thing, only the spotlight upon them is going to be much, much bigger. And as I said earlier, I don't fault people for defending their work and or opinions on something they've put so much time and effort into, like the actors in Game of Thrones have obviously done. Hell, I have the utmost respect for people who stand up and aren't afraid to say what they truly think and feel, despite knowing they might get pushback for speaking out. And I'm also not condoning people who are truly hateful with their remarks or criticism and mean real harm. Problem is, nowadays people want to deem everything hate speech or say people are being mean to them and should shut up even when they are literally just trying to offer good, constructive criticism. And if you think the quality level of entertainment has already started to go downhill, how bad is it going to get when no one gets held accountable for terrible work? When saying anything bad about something or someone else's work will get you labeled and condemned? when you're no longer allowed to harshly review a film or show because you might hurt someone's feelings, when everyone who makes a movie will get a Participation Academy Award. And that's the thing about being kind or nice all of the time. You're not encouraging anyone to self-reflect. Compliments are great when they actually are well earned, but criticisms are far more helpful to the person willing to listen to them and willing to consider maybe someone's not just trying to be mean to them, but that they're actually trying to help them get better and improve. Well, that's all I've got for this time. Not sure this is what I set out to say with this video when I started, but let's run it anyway, because I do think some people out there need to realize that criticism isn't always meant to be negative or hurtful, and the fact that you're willing to spend time critiquing something usually says that it's worth your time to analyze in the first place. Anyway, leave a comment below and offer me some criticism if you'd like, or just tell me what you think about anything or everything I had to say here. And until next time, thanks for watching.